What's up? Welcome in another Friday Junior, if you will, here on the Mike Arana Show. Plenty of stuff to talk about. Appreciate you spending some time in the middle of your day here with me. And we've got a lot to talk about because the baseball playoff picture, believe it or not, we're like about 10 days away, as TJ said the other day. A lot of stuff's going on. There's games in action right now. We'll kind of keep you up to date on those as we can. The most important of which right now, Cleveland and Detroit, end of 5-1-1 there as Detroit and Toronto still battle for that top spot in the American League. Toronto, who is down 3-0 right now in the bottom of the fifth. The Mets, they're pounding San Diego 5-1 in now the fifth. It was the third. And the pain in the ass, Western Sacramento Nomads are doing it again. They're up 4-2 on the Red Sox early in that game from Boston, Seattle, and Kansas City just underway as well. It's been an interesting week in baseball. It's been an interesting week in the sports world in general, but in baseball specifically. And we've talked about it. We've talked about it on both shows prior. Earlier this week. We'll probably talk about it a little bit more tomorrow because the cool thing about this time of year for baseball is the picture just keeps changing. So if you're watching along, feel free to comment along. And again, we do appreciate you here. I don't know what to make of this third wild card spot in the National League. It seems like it's settled a little bit since where it was at the beginning of this week. But as we've seen, that doesn't necessarily mean anything is just all hunky-dory and buttoned up and put in a nice little bow here, because we've seen teams go on long losing streaks, one of which in the middle of this mess of the wild card situation in the National League, the Mets just came off of one. The Diamondbacks have, quote, slithered. Yeah, I got dad jokes for days. They've slithered their way back into it. Still a little bit of work to do, but they're only a game and a half behind the Mets right now. The Reds 2 back, the Giants 2 back. The Giants have the Dodgers for 4 starting tonight at Chavez Ravine. I think it's a walk the plank situation for San Francisco there. I think you could be really excited if you're a Giants fan. It took a long time, but once Devers, Chapman, and Adames really started clicking together, you saw what the potential of the offense is. Bryce Eldridge will be added to that mix next year. And you know Buster Posey won't sit on his hands in San Francisco, but the Giants pitching staff isn't good enough to get them through anywhere. So still holding on to a limit of prayer there. But a lot of interesting stuff there. A lot of interesting stuff in the football world. We've got a big weekend on tap this weekend, which will lead us into an even bigger weekend next weekend in college football. But there's some really, really good games. And I think what's different about this weekend compared to next weekend when we look at college football is this weekend we've got a couple of ranked matchups, some interesting games. But I think we have a lot of games of unranked teams that are going to be really, really good. You know, you've got Iowa and Rutgers. I think that game's going to be really interesting in Piscataway. You've got Arizona State and Baylor, SMU and TCU. And then, and we've talked about this a couple of times this week, it's still weird as hell to me to see the Civil War and the Apple Cup being played in September. But that's exactly what we're going to get this weekend is Oregon and Oregon State play in Autzen. And then you've got Washington and Washington State playing their annual game as well. But there's a lot of games this week of unranked teams. I'm also interested to see a couple of teams like Georgia Tech. Are they the party crasher? Can they bounce back, or not bounce back? Can they continue bouncing forward, if you will? There you go. Make up terms as we go here. Can they continue bouncing forward after that fire drill field goal win of Clemson last week? Purdue plays still winless Notre Dame. Michigan-Nebraska game. We talked about it a little bit last night. Unbelievable, the lack of hype surrounding that game in particular. The big one that'll be up tomorrow night on our social channels, the Big Mac kickoff game. I think one of the better matchups of the weekend. I hate that it's on at 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, but Texas Tech in Salt Lake City to take on Utah. We've also got another one that's not being talked about in the Big Ten. Illinois and Indiana. Mind-blowing here. This will be the 58th time that Illinois and Indiana play each other. It is the first time that Illinois and Indiana are playing each other where they're both ranked in the AP poll. Games at Memorial Stadium in Bloomington. Indiana is a 7-point favorite, 6.5 points, depending on where you're looking. Over-under total, 52.5. Interesting spot here, too, for the Illini, because next week, and I'm guessing that they're likely to host the big noon kickoff, because they play USC in Champaign. USC, who plays Michigan State at the god-awful time for Michigan State of 8 o'clock on the West Coast. Still amazes me that nobody was like, hey, you came to our conference, you're kicking this game off at 5 o'clock on Saturday night. Competitive advantage, competitive disadvantage, I don't know. Last week we had a good week on the Saturlay. We went 3-1 on the Saturlay. We got the over on the Thursday night game, NC State and Wake. We got a cover by Alabama, and that game wasn't as close as it looked. We got the over in the Ole Miss-Arkansas game. Almost got that by halftime. And then we had no prayer. We had no hope. We had no prayer. We had no chance. No whatever you want to say in Temple covering the spread against Oklahoma. And last week I talked about it, I was still kind of bullish, if you will, on the Sooners. Because I needed to see that the Sooners had somebody that could run the football other than John Mateer. And last week they were able to get that done. This week, big game against Auburn. Revenge game, if you will. Former Oklahoma quarterback that was Boomer schoonered his way out of town. Jackson Arnold, who's now leading Auburn into that matchup. That'll be my preview game on Saturday morning on our social channels at Mike Arana Show. But let's see if we can do it again, shall we? In the Saturlay. I got drubbed by a team that we're going to talk about here in the Saturlay. I took USF in the 17.5 points. And USF had their chances to get within the number, but they got flat just beat down by Miami last week. So we're going to try and go better than 3-1 on the Saturlay this week, because who doesn't want to go 4-0? And we'll get it started, not with that game. We'll get it started. Click the right button, dumbass. There we go. There's my guy, Dante Moore. Oh my God, it's going to be one of those kind of days for us. Let's try this again. There we go. Button pushing's easy for me and you. Dante Moore and those Ducks, they host Oregon State, as I just mentioned. This one's an interesting one. The spread is about what you think it would be. Oregon is favored by 34.5 points. The over-under total on this game is 55.5. Oregon State back-to-back road games. And, you know, the situation in Oregon State is interesting because they've looked god-awful horrible. And they've been that way basically since Jonathan Smith bolted for East Lansing in the Michigan State job. And Trent Bray's starting to take some shrapnel up there. You know, they got the transfer quarterback in through the portal and Malik Murphy. And the dude's throwing interceptions like they're going out of style. Why? Oregon State has zero running game. Flip it over to the Ducks. They've looked every bit as good as one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country, depending on who you're talking to. 54 points per game so far. They ripped through Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, a combined score of 162-30. Last week was probably the, quote, worst Oregon looked. And Dan Lanning was not happy last week. They were sloppy against Northwestern in the last 7 minutes. First turnover of the season last week. Dante Moore finally threw an interception. But they didn't get hit with a single penalty. Outside of the last 7 minutes that they played in arguably one of the more perfect setups in college football. That temporary stadium Northwestern's playing in. Beautiful if you're not there in like October because it is on the lake. But Oregon looked really sloppy at the end of the game, and in the post-game interview with Dan Lanning, he was not thrilled by the way they finished that game. So if you're looking for Oregon to possibly look ahead, if you will, to Penn State, the whiteout game next week, I don't think you're going to get it. You're playing, your in-state rival, and I guarantee you Dan Lanning had the Ducks' attention after the way they finished that game. Very, very sloppy. Very uncharacteristic of an Oregon team. Oregon State's offense, they've turned it over twice in each of their first 3 games. A crap ton of penalties. 0 running game whatsoever. I'm playing this game over 55.5. Why? Because I think Oregon can score 59 or 60 and do it by themselves. Where we get into a little bit of trouble here in this game is if Oregon's defense, which, again, if you haven't watched Oregon play yet this year, and you're thinking about making a bet for the big game next week when they play Penn State, this Oregon defense is real damn good. I can't talk enough about the job that Tosh Lapoy has done as their defensive coordinator. I can't imagine it would be too long before Tosh Lapoy gets his choice of jobs when they become open. That's a pretty sweet setup they got up there in Eugene. So I'm playing that game easily over 55.5. The only way I think we get into trouble is if Oregon's defense dominates and they don't score on defense, and Oregon State can't score, period. Now, the hope that Malik Murphy throws one right to a Duck for a pick 6, always in play. Because, again, Oregon State has no semblance of anything that you would classify a running game. So that's the first one in the Saturlay, over 55. The next one, who doesn't like to spend a Saturday night on the island? That is the T.C. Chang Athletic Complex, temporary home of the University of Hawaii. And they host Fresno State. Both teams coming in looking pretty good so far in the early season. Quarterback for Fresno State, you'll recognize the last name, E.J. Warner. A little bit of a sluggish start for him this year. Yes, that is Kurt Warner's son. 716 yards, 72% completions, 4 touchdowns to 5 picks. Why would I be going to this game? Well, okay, first of all, we watch a whole day of college football. And if you've got, if you're like me, I don't like to play around with parlays a whole lot. They're sucker bets. But, the Saturlay, as we say on the show all the time, play them straight, play them together, play them both ways. That's up to you. It's entirely up to you. But what better way if you have like a little 4-legger that kind of stretches its way, meanders its way through a Saturday, than to finish it up with a late night kickoff on the island? Hawaii is actually pretty good defensively. They're only allowing 20 points a game. Luke Weaver, quarterback for Hawaii, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 61 completions. It's always an interesting game when these teams go to the island. Now you're talking about teams in the mountain here, so it's not like this is Fresno State's first trip where they're going to be all wrapped up in being on the island. I think this is going to be a really good game. Just because the teams aren't, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Georgia, Alabama, teams like that, doesn't mean you don't get a good football game here. Hawaii is a 2.5-point home dog. And I just don't know if Fresno State has been overly impressive, and I don't think they've seen a defense that's as good as Hawaii. Hawaii's defense is really, really good. They're stout. The classic prototypical bend, don't break. So, because it would be the last leg of the parlay here, I'm going to take Hawaii on the money line for a little fun at the end of the night. Again, play them straight, play them together. That's all up to you. Then we're going to go to the spot where College Game Day will be, and that's Coral Gables. And that dude right there, Mark Fletcher, is an absolute freaking beast. And this Florida situation, it's getting worse by the minute. And I think it's worse than we actually know. Because granted, we're not in the locker room. We don't know what's going on. We know there's a black cloud hanging over the tenure of Billy Napier. And I've said it a bunch of times, and I'll say it again. I like Billy. I really do. I think he's a good dude. I think he's the guy that can build a program the right way. I just don't know if he's a guy that can build a program to conference success in a conference like the SEC. Last week, they lose 20-10 at Baton Rouge in a game that they were in the whole time. DJ Lagway, 5 interceptions. And then you start to see things like this. After the game, there was about maybe 5 or 6 players that stuck around for the alma mater, and they didn't even stick around for the whole time. Most of the team just walked right off the field, right to the locker room. You say, oh, what? Big deal. It is a big deal because that's part of the college football culture. And it's also something that indicates that things might be worse than we are privy to there. I mean, the Florida defense has been good this year. It's been really good. They've given up only 2 touchdowns, their defense has, all season. DJ Lagway was not good last week. Miami, they've looked damn good. And you know the way football works in the state of Florida, that Miami would love to be the team that just drives the stake through the Gators' heart. Florida's defense, as I said, only given up 2 touchdowns. The problem is they haven't really been able to muster up much of a pass rush. And Miami's got dudes on that offensive line. They've got NFL dudes on that offensive line. And I think this could be, I hate to say it, I don't like to see anybody lose a job. But I think the way Florida plays here, and we've talked about this a little bit, when does Florida make the call on Billy Napier if they're going to make the call on Billy Napier? I think the if is left the building. And I think what happened after the game last weekend and what happened the week before that, I mean, it's not that the Gators are losing games. The Gators are losing games to unranked teams. They're losing games in Gainesville, which typically is one of the top 10 home field advantages in all of college football. And now you've got a Miami team that looks like they're starting to get a little bit of that swagger back. The U. Carson Beck, a guy I've been very hard on all the way back to our season kickoff show that we did. He's looked real damn good. 79% of his passes completed, 812 yards, 7 scores. He threw 2 interceptions against USF, and this is my knock on Carson Beck. It seems like every time he plays, he's got about 5, just dumbass, what the hell were you looking at kind of throws. They didn't matter. Miami destroyed South Florida last week. You can throw on the Florida defense as long as you take what they give you. And that'll be the thing that keeps Florida in this game or doesn't. Florida's offense, there's no creativity. They've got playmakers everywhere, but there's no creativity. There's no deep balls. It's a lot of dink and dunk and bubble screens, and then they try and get ball loose, and there's no surprise there. You're not forcing a defensive coordinator to really think. Carson Beck's a veteran. Sounds still so weird to say that when we talk about college football players, but he's a veteran. If he's smart enough to take what the Florida defense is going to give him, he's probably not going to face much of a pass rush. And that dude on the screen right there, Mark Fletcher, is that dude. 7.5 points is this spread, and I'm going to tell you right now, I think Miami covers that and covers it probably running away. And this could be the end of Billy Napier's time. I hate to say it, but there's a standard at Florida that's not being met right now. So take Miami to cover the 7.5. Finally, the last one. I mean, in case you've been under a rock, the name of the quarterback on the screen there is Arch Manning. His uncles are Peyton and Eli. Nobody's really talked about him. He was booed last week. 10 straight incompletions for Texas. But this is where I go, the box score doesn't always tell you everything, or sometimes it does tell you everything. Texas's offensive line has been just downright atrocious this year. Anybody want to guess who the leading rusher for the Longhorns is? Anybody? It's Arch Manning. So he's got a bad offensive line, and he's got no running game. And he's still a young quarterback. But because of the name on his back, we expected him to just undefeated Texas, Heisman Trophy, first pick in the draft. Yeah. They don't even have Campbell Earl right now. You got Ross checking in. We appreciate it. Hell, I mean, I could probably put up better yards running the ball for Texas than what they're getting. So they get Sam Houston State. Why is this game on my list? Why am I going back to this well again? Well, Sam Houston State's defense, one of the worst in all of college football. 130th at 38.7 points a game. So if there is a get-right game for Arch Manning before Texas gets into conference play, get a load of this one. When they get into conference play, it's going to be interesting. Because if Billy Napier does survive this weekend for Florida, Texas is coming soon. Texas also has Diego Pavia and all his aura, as the kids out there like to say right now. But this is the right defense for Texas to get right against. And eventually, you got to think the law of averages says that Arch is going to bust through at some point here. And I really think it's going to be this week. Again, this is much like the Oregon game. I do have a little bit of hesitation. I'm playing this game over 51.5. I think if Texas's offense really does click, they can hang that number by themselves. Texas's defense has been okay. Not as stout as we've probably expected them to be to start this season, but they've been okay. Hopefully we can get a touchdown, maybe two, out of Sam Houston State here. And I think we get over that number pretty easily. So if you want to play all four of them together, it's your prerogative. It's a plus 1465. Like I said, play them straight, play them together. That's entirely up to you. But let's also keep in mind here, and we're doing the same thing with Bryce Underwood right now. All heralded, all-world freshman. Last week he looked pretty decent last week. Probably his best game so far. And these guys that have only started 3, 4, 5 games ever, give them time. For Texas, obviously, time is running out because SEC play is right around the corner. So plus 1465, the Oregon State game over 55.5. Hawaii on the money line. You can also take them plus 2.5 if you'd like. I may have dabbled in both of them. Miami to easily cover the 7.5 against Florida. And then Texas and Sam Houston State over 51.5. Come on, Sam Houston State. I just need give me a touchdown in 10 points. If Texas can't do the other 42, then that's on me. Of course, it's Thursday, so that means we have Thursday night football. Again, feel free to comment along if you're watching along. And how about some Thursday night football, Mike McDaniel? How does that sound? Well, we're just another day closer to death. Miami on the road in Buffalo. If you've been on X today, you saw Tua Tagovailoa dressed in like a parka, like he was going to Buffalo in mid-December. And I know some Bills fans that are nervous about this game. You've got a very desperate Miami team, theoretically. This is a bad Miami team is what it is. Depending on where you're looking for this line, it is still out there. I checked right before we came on the air here today. It is still out there at 11.5. Most of the books have it at 12.5 right now. The over-under at 49.5. Where Miami, Mike, is going to have a problem, speaking of coaches in Florida that might not have a job as of the end of this week, I gave you one earlier in Billy Napier. Here's another one in Mike McDaniel. These are always the danger spots if you're a coach that really looks like things have spiraled out of control, because it's a Thursday night game. So if you're going to bring in an interim coach, if you're the Dolphins, this is when you would do it, because you give that interim coach a little bit of an extended period. But we've seen it on the sidelines. The Dolphins players are frustrated as all get out. Their defense has just been absolutely dreadful. And I think one of the biggest things I see tonight when I look at this game is you've got a Miami team that doesn't look like they're in it, kind of like they've turned on their coach. And their inability to get off of the field on third down from a defensive standpoint, I think, is what kills them tonight. Normally, I don't like to touch a big number like that. But when that guy's on the field, and don't at me, he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And it's not even debatable. And the scary thing for everybody right now is 17 looks more dialed in than he's ever been. Their secondary, Miami's secondary, it's already shitty. They're banged up. One of my favorite plays tonight, I think Khalil Shakir has a chance tonight to have an absolute monster game. Probably looking at a matchup with 5th round draft pick rookie Jason Marshall Jr. in the slot. I think Khalil Shakir could have a monster game tonight. Just in case you were wondering, if you bet $10 on him to have 100 yards tonight, it pays you about $1.25. Just throwing that out there. The craziest thing about the Dolphins for me, though, and we can analyze this, that, and the other thing. The Dolphins have faced Daniel Jones and Drake May in their 2 games. A quarterback in Daniel Jones who has really not been good for the majority of his career. And Drake May, who's on that was his 14th start, 15th maybe. And now they have to deal with the best quarterback in all of football. I know it's a division game, but there's no other way to put it. Miami just sucks. Their offense has looked very disjointed. And I'll give you some more reasons why maybe you don't feel totally uncomfortable tonight with the big number. Home favorites of 7 points or more are on a 31-2 straight up, 21-10-2 against the spread on Thursday night football games since the start of the 2014 season. There have been 32 Thursday night football games since 2012 with a total in the game of 50 points or more. They did go under at a 22-10 rate. So with it being right around that 50-point mark here, I think that the issue here is, can Miami score on Buffalo's defense? And I think the answer to that is yes. If Miami doesn't get down in a big hole early and Tyreek Hill starts throwing temper tantrums on the sidelines, I think Buffalo covers the number. I don't have any doubt about that. So if you're looking for one of my plays, it's Buffalo, and I took it at the minus 11.5. I wouldn't be afraid to take it at the minus 12.5. But I think that the situation you look at here is it's either going to be a shootout that Buffalo wins by 2 touchdowns, or it's going to be like 42-7 kind of nonsense, which would put you right at that mark, 49.5 or 50. So you got to be careful with it. Yes, you got Roz. I do believe that Mike McDaniel, and I've said it a couple of times on this very program, I think Mike McDaniel is a senior offensive analyst. Easy for you to freaking say. I said by Thanksgiving in San Francisco. That might be by Halloween in San Francisco. It might be by the end of September in San Francisco at this point. But I do think that would be the most likely destination for Mike McDaniel to return. And we talk about it all the time. Some guys are just good coordinators, terrible head coaches. Mike McDaniel's another one of those guys that I think fits. Maybe it's just the last name. McDaniels. We've seen how terrible of a head coach Josh McDaniels is. really damn good offensive coordinator. So, how am I going to play tonight's game? My neighbors probably think I'm weird. And you'll see this when it pops up on our social channels at Mike Arana Show. But I went to the depths to try and channel the spirits and get me back on my roll. Thursdays were really good for us last year in the triple option. It's a 1-5 start. The only thing that's looked worse than how I've started Thursday night football predictions this year is the Miami Dolphins. So I think it's a happy marriage of perfectly aligned things for tonight. Buffalo minus 11.5. I like James Cook. Now this number has moved up to about 70 yards. I like it over 70 yards. I did get it at over 67.5 yards rushing. So that was my second play. And then I'm going to my guy Ty Johnson tonight for a touchdown for the Bills. Dude averages 9.1 yards a catch. Hasn't caught a ball yet. They did try to go to him in that week 1 crazy game against Baltimore and against Miami. And with this game, I think possibly being a blowout, I think it's a good spot for a Ty Johnson touchdown, about plus 425 there. So interesting stuff all along. Now I'll put the picture up that I put up inadvertently at the beginning. A couple other NFL news and notes. That's your schedule for this weekend. Some interesting matchups there. Some of which we'll talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow on the lunch. Fighting it off this week, man. Throat sounds like a cheese grater. Tomorrow on Lunchtime Live, Mac will be with me. Same time tomorrow. We're also going to be joined for the second half of the program by our guy Herb from the Herb and Raj podcast. We're going to talk some college football with Herb, get a little more into detail on this big weekend. We're also going to look a little bit ahead to the other big one next weekend, Georgia and Alabama. If you haven't checked out Herb and Raj's podcast yet, these guys are dialed in when it comes to college football, especially SEC football. So make sure you get on over there, share the love, check them out. But here's our slate for this weekend and some really interesting games. We talked about a few of them last night. I think a lot of people are going to get their eyes on that Rams-Philly game. Russell Wilson, who played really good, and this was about me and all his selfish-ass quotes as they host Kansas City. Is it possible the Chiefs go 0-3? No. No way freaking possible they go 0-3. Especially with Russell Wilson at quarterback and Steve Spagnuolo calling the defense for Kansas City. I said it the other day, and I will stand by this too. I will double down on the fact that I think the Chiefs will still win the West. I know they're game in the hole against the Chargers. One of the coolest things on there, the Jets are in Tampa to play the Bucks. Peep this, because that's what the Bucks are going to be wearing this weekend. I'm sorry, and Mac is kind of our outfit uniform coordinator on this program, but for my money, that is an absolutely clean look right there. About time Baker Mayfield starts to get some respect, huh? After that game on Monday night. So plenty of stuff there. A couple other NFL things that caught my attention this week. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are off to a 2-0 start, but Kyler Murray is not off to a good start on his own. Maybe you saw this, maybe you didn't. The post has been taken down, but he posted a picture of him in a Michael Vick Virginia Tech jersey with one of his pit bulls the other day. I saw it come across and I had to double back to look at it again. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, I really, really couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, how does somebody, and he's got a team of people around him. And this is part of what I've talked about with Kyler Murray and why I don't think Kyler Murray is ever going to get the Cardinals anywhere significant. Based on obviously what he does on the field, but then there's also stuff like this and something else he said. But when talking about it, when he was asked about it yesterday, he said, in no way, shape, or form do I condone animal cruelty or dogfighting. Read the room, dumbass. Where in your right ever-loving mind did that sound like a good idea? Then he gets asked about Marvin Harrison Jr. All-world talent, Dude's got all the tools in the toolbox. Last week, 2 catches for 27 yards against Carolina. Murray said, there's only one ball, and as I've said it before, I wish I could get all my guys 10 or more targets. Sometimes Marv's going to get 10, other times it's 3. It is what it is. Are you freaking kidding me? Now, I don't want to put all of this on Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, for the most part, runs the plays that are called. This is on Drew Petzing. This is on Jonathan Gannon. And I get it, you could look at the Cardinals' other receivers outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. and not be like overly wowed by him, and that's a fair statement. I also think they have one of the better tight ends in the entire NFL in Trey McBride. It's really easy to take a guy like Trey McBride and a guy like Marvin Harrison and put them on the same damn side of the field and try and confuse the defense. Furthermore, if you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. on your team, you get him the damn ball. Marv's going to get 10 other times 3. It is what it is. No, dude. This is where you're missing the boat. You find ways to get that guy the ball in his hands and let him do what he does. Gus Johnson didn't call him Maserati Marv for no damn reason. And Max said it the other day, and, you know, I had to process it a little bit, but Max said that, you know, they've kind of wasted a year and 2 games of Marvin Harrison's career. I don't think he's way off base there. Rookie seasons are rookie seasons, but sometimes it's 3. It is what it is. No, man. That's not it at all. And that's, again, goes back to what I've said about Kyler Murray and why I don't think he's ever going to get the Cardinals anywhere significant. Cardinals will travel to Santa Clara, the host stadium of the Super Bowl, to take on the 49ers in a battle of 2-0 teams in the NFC West this weekend. Niners 2.5-point favorites. The over-under total on that is 44.5. Mac Jones looked really damn good last week. And of course, I literally, as I was watching the game, I knew this was going to come up. Oh, any quarterback could play great in Kyle Shanahan's system. Maybe they paid Brock Purdy too early. Dude, the slander on Brock Purdy still to this point is so absolutely laughable and dipshitish, for lack of a better term. And Brock Purdy has a, quote, chance to play on Sunday. I don't think he's going to. Obviously, he doesn't have a turf toe issue at the rate that Cincinnati's dealing with right now with Joe Burrow. But apparently he had no restrictions last week. And you know what? Not playing him on the turf in New Orleans, not a bad strategy. So there is a chance that in this game with the Cardinals and the Niners, the other 2-0 team in the division, the Rams that are in Philadelphia, like we've said. How about this, 49er fans? How about you just be happy that you have a competent backup? It's a pretty important position in the NFL. Mac Jones is not Brock Purdy. Mac Jones is in the Kyle Shanahan quarterback rehabilitation program. If you need previous examples, see Sam Darnold, who helped the Seahawks to a big win on the road in Pittsburgh last week. The NFC West, at least early on here, looks like it's going to be very entertaining. Another thing I want you to know, and this is something that I think is very important because I keep hearing this and I laugh every time I hear it. You know, oh, stats about 0-2 teams that can they make the playoffs? Anybody that's feeding you those stats doesn't know what they're talking about. Because just in case you've been living under a rock, there's now 17 games and there is a 7th playoff team. So a lot of these people that are using these stats are going back to times when that stat was pertinent, when there was 16 games and there weren't 7 playoff teams. They don't apply now. Buyer beware where you're getting your information. Another interesting note about the game this weekend, if you think the Chiefs have a chance to go 0-3, here's something that'll back you up. Because they're not. Since MetLife Stadium opened in 2010, the Giants are 98, 146, and 1, and the Jets are 93 and 151. Do with that information what you will. I get it. Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones are the two leading passers in the NFL right now. Give it some time. And for all that patting on his own back that Russell Wilson did last week, he still made one dumbass throw with the game on the line that he forced, that he didn't have to throw. So, good job on your career high, buddy. Your team still lost. And now you get a pissed off, angry Chiefs team coming in. I think the game will be interesting. But I'm also going to tell you that there's no way in hell an Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes team, with whatever deficiencies they are dealing with right now, starts the season 0-3 and starts the season 0-3 at the hands of the New York freaking Giants. No way. But Russ might play good, and he'll tell you it was about him. Freaking clown. Absolute clown show. Again, tomorrow on the program, Mac will be with me. Same bat time, same bat channel. Second half of the program, our guy Herb from the Herb and Raj podcast. The triple option will go up on our social channels. Tomorrow, I'm going to rebut Tony's comments from this morning on his Heisman predictions, because there's one guy he's fallen in love with, and I am telling you right now, don't fall in love with this guy. And then, of course, the games we'll have covered for you this weekend. Texas Tech and Utah, that's going to be a fantastic game. Auburn, Oklahoma. TJ's After Dark game is actually going to be Arizona State and Baylor. A very important game in the Big 12 and a very good game, I think, that's flying under the radar. And then, as per usual, our normals on Sunday. Next Thursday, the week from today, we're going to start a little bit later. We're going to start at noon because I have got a fantastic guest, a guy I've been going back and forth with for a long time. You want to talk about the sharpest person I've ever known in my life when it comes to sports betting? He will be here with me next Thursday. I will tell you a little bit more about that tomorrow and next week. So for everybody behind the scenes, for those of you out there watching, we appreciate you. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show. Until tomorrow, have a good rest of your day. I'm Mike. We're